All right, welcome to the Ducks on the Pond podcast. It'll be going on every Sunday. It will be the four of us. We have Justin, Charlie, and Phil. We're going to be talking about baseball topics. It'll range every week from a variety of different topics, including free agencies, signings, whatever's going on for that current week. Myself, my name is Rick. I am the creator of Rick Talks Baseball on TikTok and Instagram. I've been a fan of baseball my entire life. And lately, we've been trying to do this podcast to get some great baseball conversations started. Next up, we have Justin. Justin, tell me a little bit about yourself.
So as Rick put it, my name is Justin. I've been playing baseball since I was probably 3 years old, growing up, and then umpired till I was like 24. So I just like talking baseball, and I'm excited to do this. Just ready to go.
Justin, I can't tell from your background. Who's your favorite team?
The Yankees. No, Mets for sure. We're going to buy this championship real quick. All right, now it's Charlie.
All right, Charlie, tell me a little bit about yourself.
I am Charlie. I, like Justin and Rick, had just grown up around baseball my whole life. Played through high school and, umpired through high school, all that kind of stuff. So, yeah, my favorite team, unfortunately, is the Astros. So, but yeah, excited to be on the podcast.
I think it'll be interesting to see how a lot of people, once we go live into the chat, since this is a pre-recorded session, right, how people are going to kind of, I feel like Charlie's going to get a lot of the attention. It's so easy right now to hate that I feel like he's going to get a lot of guff, but he's like the perfect fit and the personality to take that and run with it. Like he's going to come back with facts, because I've just spoken with him about this before. So he's going to lay out the facts, which is going to be very interesting. First topic, we're going to go with Justin's. We're going to go with Justin's as the first topic. We came just for everyone, just to get informative about how the podcast is going to work. Each one of us for the initial podcast has chosen two. Now where we are without Phil in this portion of the podcast. So we're gonna deviate from Phil's or hold on until a later session. But Justin has chosen two, Charlie has chosen two, and I have chosen two to go over. The first one, we're going to go with Justin's topic, and it's deGrom leaving and what it did to free agency. Either you guys want to take this one first and let me know what you think.
Yeah, I'll just dive right in, since this is a big deal for the Mets with him heading out. But let's start with what that contract actually was. He left the Mets for 5 years at $185 million with an option of a sixth year, and that could get him an extra $37 million. And there is a clause in that contract, whereas if he goes down with Tommy John, has to have that surgery, he doesn't get paid for that time off. So with that kind of contract, that really sets up the entire major leagues there. I know they've always had clauses before, but now I think the injury clauses are going to be more upfront with these higher end players. I mean, we're seeing that with Correa right now, where it's just not getting done, because owners aren't going to pay millions of dollars for someone just to go down in 2 years and then they'd be done for the rest of their career. There's no way. So that's where I'm at with that whole deGrom situation, because no one's going to pay for damaged goods. The deGrom situation, I think that contract's ridiculous. Nothing over 3 years for deGrom should have ever happened. But that's my opinion on that. So, yeah, I mean, that's just kind of the information jiving in there.
Yeah, I just think a lot with these injuries. These contracts are bordering on ridiculous, and this is why I'm glad you brought this up. I think they're overextending players with known histories of injury. I mean, you look at deGrom right now, and I mean, he has not pitched more than 15 games in the last 3 years. When he's on, we all know that. I mean, he's ridiculous, and nobody has stuff like deGrom. And what I think you're seeing with Texas is a high risk, high reward. They're wanting to take that chance, because they know if it works out and he can pitch more than 15 games, he can come close to making Texas a contender, especially with the other signings, which we can get to, later on in the podcast. But if you get that kind of year out of deGrom, you don't have to rely on Evaldi, Perez, Gray, and Heaney, any of those guys. You don't need as much out of them if he can start a good portion of games. And the other problem you're going to have with Texas is how many innings is he going to go? Is he on a pitch limit? Neither of those things have been stated yet. So it'll be interesting to see, because if he can have even a half decent season, Texas could be one of those dark horses to make it to the playoffs. What do you think, Charlie?
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, Texas made a couple big moves last year that didn't really work out, or didn't do anything for them. They got both Semien and Seager, and still finished like third or fourth in division. So it'll be interesting to see, because I don't know, they seem to be trying to like a budget's Met team trying to buy their roster. Instead of trying to, bring up guys and build a team, they're just trying to buy some good players who, in my opinion, a couple of them are already past their prime. I mean, like you're saying with deGrom, I mean, he's gonna, by the end of his contract, he's gonna be into his late 30s. Seager and Semien, in my opinion, are both, past. Maybe Semien, I think, still has a couple good years left, but I think Seager's past his prime.
Yeah, I just don't see, and take your bias out, Charlie, but I mean, do you think they have a shot? I mean, of even contending against teams that, I mean, like the Astros right now? I see them finishing third right now.
They got third locked up.
I just think the Mariners.
It'll be interesting to see them. My only thing, like, the Mariners haven't made any moves this offseason, really. I mean, they've lost a couple key pieces and haven't really picked anybody up. So it'll be interesting to see where the Mariners end up falling in that list.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting also to see Julio grow, because in just his first year, he's going to get nothing but better.
Yeah.
Sure.
And I had seen some comparisons to him and Griffey during the week during a couple TikTok lives. They were stating, is he the next Ken Griffey? No?
Too early. Way too early. It's way too early. He's only been in the league 1 year. There's no way.
So another thing I think that'll factor big into this division specifically is with the new changes of every team playing every team, they're taking those games out of other divisional games. And what's happened is the Astros have just swept their division every year we play. So when the Rangers have to play us 20 times a year and they're losing, 14, 15 of those games, versus now they only play us, maybe 10 times. Those games are going to other teams, and that'll be interesting to see, like where the wins and losses are going to fall, on those with those other teams.
So here's my question then, Charlie, to that. Who holds the bigger advantage, the American League or National League? Because then you got to compare who has worse off teams record-wise.
Ooh, that's a good
look at the East. The AL East is stacked. I mean, you could have possibly every team finishing over 500 if the Orioles continue to grow. Then the Central is, you're going to have some 500 teams. White Sox, Cleveland.
I was going to say, even in the NL East, I mean, you got three teams that are probably going to make the postseason immediately. Like that's just how it is. Like this is going to be crazy year for both. I don't think there's an advantage personally, but yeah, I know you asked Charlie, but
no, it's for anybody. I knew that was based off of his comments.
Well, the NL West is almost just as tough. You got the Padres and the Dodgers, who are both going to be, looking at 100 wins each.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if a league has a specific advantage or not. I will say that it does seem like the National League has some of the more bottom teams. Like you look at like the Nationals, the Cubs, the Pirates, like those kind of teams. You don't really see as much of that in the American League. I mean, you got a couple in the AL Central, like we're saying, but I mean the AL West AL East has got, like you said, 5 teams that are all potentially playoff caliber teams, depending on if they make moves or what happens during the season. And then the AL West, I mean, even like the worst team besides maybe the Athletics, I mean, even the Angels with the talent they have potentially could put up, 80 wins.
Poor Justin.
I like that.
Like, what about my team? We got the Braves, we got Philly, who got even better. I mean, the Braves are locking up all their younger talent. They're going to be good for years to come. You got the Mets, who are buying every seagull who lands on their field.
4 years, 85 mil.
Crazy. In the Nationals, I mean, they haven't done much, but I mean,
Nationals and Marlins both don't look very good.
Yeah.
No. Yeah, even Chisholm's come out recently. He said, "Give me that money from the Braves, please."
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. All right, let's move on to our next topic. This is Charlie's topic on here, and we're going to go with pick an MLB team and compare it to an NFL team. Charlie, do you want to start with this one?
Yeah, I'll go with, so the one I picked, in my opinion, is the Astros and the Patriots are fairly compatible. Maybe not the more recent Patriots, but the Patriots of the last 10, 15 years. Just a dynasty team that everybody hates. They both kind of had their scandals with Deflategate and then the sign stealing with the Astros. You can kind of compare Altuve and Brady as, two of the most hated athletes in their sports for, a long time. But at the same time, those teams continue to be dominant and make it back to the postseason, make it back to their championship games year after year.
That's a good one. Justin?
Yeah, I'll compare the Cowboys to the Yankees. You get great signings, but I have to break out the VHS player to see when the last time you did something important was. It just doesn't make sense. You overpay for someone that you have one good year and they're never the same. For instance, I've got Zeke and Chapman. They're basically the same signing. You give them a bunch of money, downgrade as soon as they get that money. And then you literally have players who can carry you the entire season to a playoff run, and then you boo them. My instance is Judge going 0 for 6, and then Tony Romo's entire career. He was the best one on that team for 15 years, it felt like, and then just the way that those Yankee and Cowboys fans are, man, they're just brutal. They're brutal for no reason. So, that's my comparison.
Well, the funny thing is, a lot of people are fans of both of those teams too.
Yep.
Which makes it all that more interesting.
Yeah.
This one was a tough one because I wanted to deviate from some of the obvious choices. I started to think a lot of which teams. So my first instinct was to go for spending. Who either doesn't spend but expects to win. But it was really hard as I dug down and tried to do research in it because there's a salary cap in the NFL, so you can't really use that. Some teams, I'm assuming, don't hit that cap. So I tried to think of the next best thing, like who can get to the playoffs but can never win. So I decided to go, and this is a long shot, but I'm going to go with the Buffalo Bills and the Cleveland Guardians. Reason being, both had great teams, and when I'm comparing them in the 90s. So you're going to have to go in the Wayback Machine, get your flux capacitor, get in that car 88 miles an hour. And so to go to the 90s, you had one great NFL team, the Bills, who could never win the big game. And you have another team who was stacked in the Cleveland Indians at that time, now the Guardians, who had crazy stars on that team, maybe lacked a little bit of pitching, but just could not take that stud team all the way to the World Series. That team should have won multiple World Series, in my opinion. You had Jim Thome, Manny Ramirez, Omar Vizquel, Sandy Alomar Jr. Their pitching staff was pretty good. They had Charles Nagy. They had, I'm trying to think of who else on there, Oral Hershiser, Ken Hill, Alan Embry. They didn't have a horrible pitching staff, and their bullpen was really good too. I just felt like with the team that they had, they should have done a lot more than just one World Series at that time. I guess kind of thinking about it too, I could have compared them to Atlanta, but them winning in 95 kind of shut the door on that.
Yeah.
That's a good one. I like, because both teams made the championships a couple times and then lost in pretty brutal fashion.
Yeah.
I love the story that during Game 6 they were rolling out the champagne in the locker room for Cleveland, and then they blew it and they had to roll the champagne back out and get ready for Game 7.
I like it. Man, those Guardians teams were fun to watch. And like I said, with Jim Thome, I still I could watch Thome all day. I love his highlights. Just a truly good person who deserved everything he got.
Just think of the Cleveland Guardians, when Lindor was on that team, when they made the World Series and lost to the Cubs, that team should have beat the crap out of the Cubs, in my opinion. Oh man, but that team was so good. They definitely should have won that World Series, but I think that rain delay screwed them all up. So
something that doesn't get mentioned enough is Dave Dombrowski. I don't know if you guys have looked into this, but that guy has continually took teams and made them perennial winners almost wherever he goes, and it's not talked about enough. He goes to Boston, he gets them there. It's also Theo, but he also gets them to the playoffs almost all the time. they start winning World Series. He moves on. Where is he now? He's in Philly. What's Philly doing now?
About to win all the series.
He is just, everywhere that guy goes, he creates a winning culture. And regardless if they win a World Series, they're always in contention. So, like I said, I think that is one guy who isn't talked about enough when people are talking, ownerships, GM, that type of stuff. So, something I also was thinking about on there. So, let's see. We're gonna go with my topic, which I'm very passionate about, and I'll start off on it, and then you guys can kind of go. But and this might be a touchy one for Justin, but does spending the most money, if you're building a baseball team, is spending the most money necessarily going to buy you a championship? When is the last time we've seen a baseball team spend a ridiculous amount of money and end up winning the World Series? 5 out of the 12 teams that made the playoffs last year were in the bottom half of payroll. Yes, a lot of those teams got eliminated, but the Houston Astros proved that you don't have to have the most expensive payroll. Right now, if I ask both of you guys, Charlie, you're going to get this one because I believe we've already had conversation. But Justin, can you tell me who's the highest paid player on the Astros and how much he makes?
No.
It's Altuve at 27 million, and after that, it goes down to about 16 million. So they really sign these either friendly contracts or they sign up guys pretty much in the same that the Braves do, where they get them for a bunch of years at the beginning, and they've consistently created this great farm system on there where it just you've seen kind of the spoils of that, where they're in the playoffs every year. It just, so sorry to throw your Mets underneath the buzz again, Justin. But
no, I got you. I got a rebuttal for you. You're right.
Okay. 1986 is the last time the Mets won the World Series. So, and you're looking at the Yankees, 2009. Before that, you're looking at 2000. The Dodgers win it in a 60 season, which is a topic for another day. I did a TikTok. People are throwing Mickey Mouse championship around a lot of that stuff. Still a World Series. Still, we'll get to that. But that's the only time that they won. Otherwise, you're looking at 1988. Padres haven't won, and they spend ridiculous amounts of money. These teams spending a lot of money, it's not it. You have to have chemistry. You have to have the right guys. To my point, you have to have a great farm system. You're going to go nowhere without it, because once it's depleted, as you're seeing with the White Sox, once you deplete that farm system and there's nothing to back it up, you're really not in a good place, because in order to keep winning, it's not just about the free agency. You have to keep getting a return on your investment. You need to keep getting these younger talents funneling through the system, and that's where scouting comes in. Either one of you can take it from there.
You want to go first, or me?
I'll go first. I mean, I totally agree with you for the Astros. Another big thing that they've done is let their players walk. Some of the biggest names from the Astros in the last 5 years, we've let them walk. And as an Astros fan, a lot of them were, unpopular at the time, letting George Springer walk, letting Carlos Correa walk, this year letting Verlander walk, all at the time kind of seemed like maybe a little bit questionable decisions. Like, are we really going to let these guys go? But I mean, for the most part, obviously we just won another championship, so they've worked out decision wise. And in our farm system, we were able to turn out players like Jeremy Pena. Center field, we haven't quite figured out, but I mean, just look at the rotation we're able to put out every year with just, feels like every year the Astros have a new stud pitcher you have never heard of before this year, whether it's Valdez or Christian Javier, those kind of guys. Lance McCullers Jr. from a couple years ago when he came out. And then, we've got a couple guys like Hunter Brown, who's basically, Justin Verlander Jr. It just seems like we're able to just churn out new talent and, replace those guys at, fraction of the cost.
So before we get to Justin, out of the team, do you have a team that you have in mind besides your Astros? If they don't win, do you have somebody else in mind that you would believe is going to win the championship if the Astros don't? And I want to see how that correlates to my discussion.
If it was, I think it'd probably be a National League team. I'm not sure who I think it would be. I think the Phillies have a decent chance of going back to it and winning, especially with picking up Trey Turner. But I think the Cardinals are maybe a dark horse to come. I feel like last year they kind of fell flat, but they had a really good regular season, and I mean, really, there's nobody else in that division that's going to, except maybe the Brewers, that's going to push them. So you know, they're almost a lock for a playoff spot. So, but yeah, I think one of those two teams would be my favorite to win next year.
Awesome. Justin, you.
All right, so I'll just go into what I had written down, and then I'll go for the rebuttals there. So yeah, the Mets have spent almost $1 billion this offseason. They're at 804, and that's including the Correa deal. So yeah, there's been some money spent. That's no argument there. But the reason why it's so important for teams to spend money is to shut up your horrible fan base. That's a great one. The other one is you want players to be able to want to come play with you. You have to get those bigger names, because I'm sorry, if we had a player like Bryce Harper scouting for us, going to these other people are going to sign with us, you know? And I think that's a big thing. Lindor was able to get the Baez trade done, basically. We need that. And the only way we're going to get that is if we get those high dollar players in here playing, and they're like, oh, these guys really have a championship. They want to win. They're signing these high dollar guys. I want to go play with them. All right. So that's kind of, because like right now, who wants to go play in Miami? Nobody. Nobody wants to play for the Marlins, you know, like, because they're not spending anything. Now my rebuttal for your thing, Rick, about the farm system. Do you know how many Mets players that are in the farm system in the top 50 prospects?
Go ahead.
7. We have the number 1 prospect. We've got the number 3 prospect, and then we go down from there. So
but who's your number 1
our farm system is very good. It's just, they're not ready yet. That's the problem. And that's where all these come in. Now with these big signings, let's say we sign Correa, right? Brett Beatty is our next up and comer. He played a couple of games for us last year. He didn't hit that great, but he's going to be a stud. Like, he's just got to have that time. Now that if we lock Correa up for 12 years, what are we going to do with him? We're going to trade him and get more prospects, you know? So that's what I think's going to happen. Is that's the process right now. But the big deal is Uncle Steve, as I call him. He promised the Mets fans a championship within 5 years. And he said, I will spend all the money that I can to get that for us. So that's kind of why I think we're seeing the big dollar drops. I don't think we'll see that again after this year. I just don't think we will. I think they wanted to get really big players locked up. The only ones I can see getting big contracts, Alonso is going to get a big contract from us. I mean, just looking at Nemo's deal, I didn't think Nemo deserved that big of a contract, but it is what it is. So I expect Pete's to be the next big price. Then after that, I don't see another big signing for a long time for the Mets. So I think it's just the buildup right now. He's only had the team 2 years. So I think that's where it's headed right now.
Yeah, I just think the best way to get the fans off your back is win championships. I mean,
Yep. Yeah,
It's true.
You know, if you look at the Astros free agent signings this year, really the only 2 players we've signed are Jose Abreu, who signed a very team-friendly deal despite not even being on our team.
Mm-hmm.
And then Michael Brantley, who, again, very team-friendly deal, willing to come back because he knows he has a shot at another ring.
Right.
You know, I just think that, like, you know, you don't need to buy your team if you're able to just scout out a good team. But
I think that's the issue is our team was so bad for so long. The coaching staff was so bad for so long. The scouts weren't that great. I think that's what we're in. It's kind of a rebuild, but they're paying for the rebuild basically.
Right.
Well, and the point I would make to you is, yes, they may have a good farm system, but how many of those guys played last year or were impactful toward that run?
Brett Beatty and the catcher, I can't remember, Francisco Alvarez, they came up and played.
Okay. So that would be my point. And how many of these big contracts are stopping a lot of those guys in the Mets pipeline and not giving them the opportunity to come up and play? To Charlie's point, like a Pena, they lose Correa, but then they replace him with Pena, and then Pena is like, he didn't have that great of a season, but he definitely contributed when it mattered the most. So I mean, that would be on there. And can we talk about how crazy it is that Brantley, I think, signed 1 year $12 million, and Bellinger got $5.5 million more than he did? And I really believe, other than the injury impact, I mean, that just boggles my mind.
Yeah, I mean, Brantley's a career, 315 hitter, and Bellinger hasn't hit over 200 in like 3 years.
Yeah.
I think he'll have
Yeah,
a
that
bounce
was-
back in Wrigley. He'll be aided by that wind.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
He'll have a little bit.
Well,
bigger-
if it blows out,
I see still 20 home runs next year for Bellinger.
20 home runs, probably 250 hitter.
Poor guy. It's not all about average. It's sabermetrics. Now, don't you forget that.
Oh man, it's the thought of what he may hit.
Yeah, I mean, that's a discussion for another day. But
Definitely.
all right, we're going to go to Justin's next topic, which I believe is the Verlander stuff, which this will
That's
be a
correct.
good topic. So,
That is correct.
Justin's topic is Verlander. He looks to be the closest person that's going to hit 300. Justin wants to know, will he hit that 300? I believe he's at 244 right now. Correct me if I'm
Yeah.
wrong. And
No,
we
yeah,
wanna-
he's 55 away.
he wanted to know also, besides Verlander, will anyone else hit that? When is the next time we're going to see one? Thoughts on that? Justin, go ahead and start it off.
I say yes, he does do it in a Mets uniform. That's the more important thing. I think it takes him 3 to 4 years to get if he can stay healthy and he doesn't need any more surgery. I think Verlander could easily pitch well into his mid 40s if he's not there now. I think he's 40? Is he 41? Somewhere around there. I think he's the same age as close to Max. So I think those two will still be in our rotation for a couple more years. So I think Verlander will definitely get that, especially with the boost of our offense. If our bats don't go quiet as normal, I think he'll easily get that. In my search, I found that Kershaw and Greinke were the only possibilities, but the only problem is they're injured and Greinke's he's like 45 already now. Like he's just a monster. But there's 60 less wins from Verlander, so I just don't think we're going to see anyone for a very long time hit that. Because I also saw the big one that shocked me was no pitcher under the age of 30 has 75 wins.
Yeah.
So that just tells you right there, there's no way anyone's going to come close. So I made it just kind of an educated guess here, only because he's only pitched 24 games in his career so far. I'm going to go with Spencer Strider is probably going to be the next one to hit that. He's pitched, he's 24. He's only pitched 33 games. Sorry about that. So yeah, he's 24. He's pitched 33 games. He's 12-5 over that span, and he's got a 2.6 career ERA. So I'm just going to choose him because he's young. He's good. We'll see what happens with his career. So
We'll have to go into the archives later on when, his career 10 years from now, we're going to have to look back.
Right.
Like, that inaugural podcast, who did we say? Were we right?
dang, what did he drop? He got 1,500 wins. Damn, Justin knows what he's talking about.
Before I get to Charlie, one of the interesting things I saw when I did do that research also is if you had to guess, now I forgot. So I was going to ask who is older. It was Madison Bumgarner or I forget, but Madison Bumgarner is only 32 years old. So
He's
I'll
the same age as
check while Charlie talks, but there was another player where if I compared him to him, you would have thought that Bumgarner was the older one, but we forget Bumgarner is only 32 years old.
Yeah, I think it's just because he went to the World Series like so many times when he was so young that we just think he's been around for 20 years. But, realistically, he's been in the league for 12 or whatever.
Yeah, I think it's deGrom because everyone thinks deGrom's younger than what he is, but he didn't get to the major leagues till he was like 26. And he came up in 2014 and that's how long he's been in here. He hasn't even been in here 10 years and he's already 32, 31 years old as well as Bumgarner. And it's shocking.
It was Chris Sale. Chris Sale is 30.
Chris Sale, wow.
Bumgarner is 32. So Chris Sale is 1 year older than Bumgarner. And usually, if I told you that, he came up, it's not a guy I would personally think of just right up top of my head, be like, yes. We all think of like Bumgarner is like this guy who's been in the league for a long time. And to Charlie's point, it's because of all that success early on.
Yeah, definitely.
All right. Now that I did that, on to Charlie.
Yeah, Verlander has stated that he wants to pitch till he's 45. And it's interesting. It seems like with this new version of the Tommy John surgery, whatever you want to call it, pitchers are coming back stronger than before they had the surgery. So I don't know. I think it is a real possibility. you know, again, you'll have to, you know, monitor his health. He did have a little stint where he had to go on the IL last year. But so we'll, you know, it'll be interesting to see. In terms of pitchers, I don't know. It is interesting how few innings, you know, how much fewer innings pitchers are pitching now and that kind of stuff. So we'll see. You know, I think somebody there's a couple of guys who I think, you know, have the skills to get to the 300 wins, but aren't playing on teams that are going to give them those wins. Like you look at like Sandy Alcantara, who's a stud, and you know who you know probably is going to be one of the best pitchers in the next 5 years. But if he's on the Marlins, how many wins is he going to get?
Yeah.
So we'll see. You know, if you kind of got to look at players that are on teams that are going to win. You know, look at, you know, maybe some of the Dodgers pitchers. You know, some of their young pitchers, see what they're, you know, if they're looking like maybe they could get it, or, you know, Yankees or Astros pitchers, something like that.
Yeah.
How about, I don't think anybody's going to hit it after Verlander.
Ever?
No, somebody will hit it eventually, but it might not be in our lifetime. Here's why. The game's changed. Sabermetrics have changed the way we look at ball games. Wins are no longer important. I mean, we're going to start coming up here where the Hall of Fame is going to have to change its statistical thresholds. 300 is almost a guaranteed ticket into Cooperstown, but nobody's going to be hitting it. So what are you just going to say? No one else is going to be allowed to enter the Hall of Fame? Because after Verlander, like you stated, Justin, I mean, it's a long shot at anyone. You're picking somebody who's just a rookie or first year. I mean, you got to go that far back. The dark horse that I had, if I had to choose in doing my research, it was definitely Garrett Cole. I mean, Garrett Cole has 130 wins. He's on a Yankees team, to Charlie's point, that he's on a team that can produce or get him enough wins, or maybe give him some run support, even though they had their struggles sometimes last year. They still were able to produce a good amount of runs throughout the season. He averages in his career 13 wins per season. If he's 31, so if he does 10 seasons, let's say, and he pitches until he's 41. If he averages 13 wins per season, that's another 130. And being at 130, that would put him at 260. He would fall short by 40, and that's getting his average. But to Charlie's point, like, I just don't see him being as durable as Verlander, because Verlander, I like to compare a lot to, you know, Nolan Ryan with being strong. I can see him pitching into his mid and late 40s, maybe, depending on where he's at. I don't know if I see the same thing with Cole. I mean, he's giving me no indication that he's any different. It's hard to say with these pitchers, and pitchers get hurt so often, you can never foresee what's going to happen. But the fact that Verlander had Tommy John, I don't think you're going to see a whole lot of arm issues out of him. I could be wrong. But yeah, I mean, if he can pitch even just a little bit past his 41 season, Garrett Cole could be could be the one that hits it. But it's just weird now, because if a pitcher hits a certain amount of pitches, he's pulled from the game. And there's so many specialty relievers and situations that they'll pull bullpens in for. It just, I think, gone are the days of wins. Nobody cares about wins anymore. And I think that's the problem we're going to fall into with this argument. That's why you're not seeing anyone even 75 wins or greater, is just because it's gone. They just want to win. Sabermetrics is all about producing a certain amount of statistics into an algorithm that produces a win for your team, which we know will get you to the playoffs due to small ball or money ball. But I've never seen it work to the extent of a world championship, because even Boston, to your point, Justin, earlier, was spending money. You still have to spend money. You can't have no. A's prove that you cannot win it on no payroll.
Yeah.
So, but I mean, that's my thought on it. I'll be glad to see. I mean, even with 3,000 hits, it's I did a little bit more research to see like some of these other statistical thresholds that the Hall of Fame wants, like 3,000 hits. And the closest one I can see would be Altuve.
Altuve or Votto?
Who's going to hit 3,000?
Yeah, Altuve or Votto, 100%.
Votto was
only because Votto's like, you know, he got better with age.
Freeman would be another one. Freeman, they just need, I think it's
Freeman, Freeman's a good
they
one,
need 6 seasons of 200 hits.
Oh, Freeman's got that in a bag.
I think Altuve will for sure get to.
Altuve will do it 100%.
Votto, I think, will also get it. Yeah, Freeman, he'll have to. I don't know. He's a little bit younger, I think, so he'll have to.
Freeman is the same age as Altuve.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Wow.
Altuve
Were they
has
32?
still, I think.
33?
31. I think they're both 31. I'd have to double check, but they're either 31 or 30.
Yeah, Altuve's 31.
Then they're both 31. So, all right. Is everyone done on that subject?
I think we're good.
Yeah.
I think we're
I think
good.
so.
We're gonna go to Charlie's next on there. Charlie wants to know if you could expand, or they're talking about expanding teams even more. What would be the two places that you would pick as the places you would want MLB to put teams at? What cities would you think would be a best fit?
Yeah, so
Charlie.
they've been talking about expanding the last few years. They've also talked about moving some franchises, but probably if they were going to expand, it would go to 32 teams just to make even divisions. But the two cities I think that would be really fun to see new teams at, I think Nashville would be an awesome place to see. Just if you look at kind of the atmosphere of some of their other professional sports, the Titans games, they always, pack the house in there. Titans games are a really fun atmosphere. And Nashville Predators are one of the best atmospheres in hockey. If you've ever watched one of their games or been to one of their games, it's a really fun atmosphere. And they have some other teams like close, like they have their University of Tennessee in Knoxville, and they go crazy there, and that's always a fun time. But no, I think Nashville would be a really fun spot, and they don't really have the closest team to them is Georgia, Atlanta, Georgia, which is, it's close, but it's not, I feel like there's enough separation, and Nashville's a big enough city where it would be fun for them to have their own team. And then the other one I think is if we, brought baseball back to Montreal, bring back the Expos, people have been calling that asking for that for a while. I think that would be a pretty obvious choice in my opinion. If we're going to expand the teams, I think that'd be one to look at.
Justin?
Me and Charlie have been talking about this for a couple of days. So I'm trying to go outside of his realm. I still think the East Coast, towards the South regions, there are 3 states right there that I believe just need teams, if they can do it. Richmond, Virginia, hometown, I get a little biased there, but there's huge baseball following there. I mean, yeah, we've got the Norfolk Tides there, which is a farm system for the Orioles. But I mean, huge players have come out of Virginia. I mean, you got David Wright, the captain, for the Mets for so long. I mean, even the first round pick for the Washington Nationals, the first time they drafted Ryan Zimmerman, who's out of that area as well. And he was I believe as far as I know, he's still playing. I didn't see if he retired or not, but he won a championship with them. That was the only team he ever played for, so I think that area, and I'm also a little biased to it. The other one is the Carolinas. They need some sort of baseball stuff going on there. With the Panthers, they just call it the Carolina Panthers. You could do the same thing with the baseball team, just call it Carolina something. That's just where I just feel like it should be there. It should be somewhere on the East Coast, in my opinion.
Yeah, I know Charlotte's a big city. A lot of people
Exactly. Yep. Charlotte would be where the home stadium is, where I would put it. So, but yeah.
You guys are killing me. I should have went first. It was like my go-to because of so many people flooding in and out of Nashville all the time.
Yeah, Nashville's a good one. Yeah,
you're gonna get attendance, and I mean, Charlotte was another choice for me. I believe that it's such a great baseball area. I believe the White Sox farm team is out there, and they tend to draw pretty well out there. So the Carolinas produced a lot of good talent. So I think they're just missing the boat, not having a team there. And the other one that I was thinking about that was kind of out of left field would be New Orleans.
Ooh, yeah, okay.
A lot of the same feels and a lot of the same traffic. I just believe that would be a good spot and an exciting spot. And you have a lot of teams in that general area. So I mean, you got a lot of Houston and a lot of time. You got Texas Rangers. I feel like there's a big spot above where there's not a lot. Because I mean, the biggest thing when you're trying to choose where you want to put these teams is you don't want to, I mean, necessarily take the fans. Baseball wants to build its fan base. You want to put it into a place where there's still baseball excitement, but not necessarily a team close by.
Right.
Like I said, the closest thing is Texas. I mean, there's no Alabama team, there's no Mississippi, Arkansas, Tennessee, Oklahoma. I mean, there's nothing around that area with the exception of Texas, which has a few teams, which would make for great rivalries. But I think that's one of the things you need to look into as baseball's trying to expand out.
Yeah.
So shame on you for taking everyone I want to take.
I think it would be, I really hope that eventually baseball does expand. And I also hope that with the expansion, they maybe redo divisions.
Yeah, they'd
A lot
have
of
to.
the divisions just don't really make a whole lot of sense right now, especially like the AL West. You look at it and you've got like the 2 Texas teams, and then they're playing teams in like California and Seattle. And it's like, why are they playing teams from 2 time zones away?
Yeah.
So, you know, it would be cool if we got maybe like a Southern, the AL South or something like that.
Yeah, that'd be sick.
Teams like you're saying, like some of the, like a Tennessee and a New Orleans with the Texas teams.
On a side note, before we go to, I think we finish it off. I believe it's my subject on the last one, but
It is. Yeah.
and I mean, we can just do a free for all after that anyway. But when I was a kid, on a side note, there was this game called Hardball. It was for the PC, and I could create characters. So like, I'll give you an example. This was like today, like just like real time. I could create a player that's Charlie in left field. I can create Justin in center. I could be the pitcher. I would put all my buddies in there as the lineup, and my team name for that team, I thought it was the coolest thing because I came up with the name. They were called the Maine Lobsters, and their big thing was an M and an L on it. And I'll never forget that. I used them as my expansion team forever. And I thought it was like the greatest thing ever. And now I think about it, it sounds silly, but like
It's great.
on a side note, we'll just say Maine would be another place to put a baseball
I
team.
like Maine. I think
And it
that-
has to be a lobster. That's the only
Oh, it
choice
has
now. It has to be.
Somebody get that to happen. So I can put all my
I need a
childhood
shirt that says the Maine Lobsters.
stuff. My last one is there is 3 teams on Correa right now. Mets, let's throw it out there. The Mets, from what I've heard out there, they're saying that any teams that are interested, they're saying Mets are the team. Right now, Mets are the team, and that's all you need to know. I want to know who the 3 mystery teams you think that are calling on Correa are. And then I need to know if the deal gets restructured, what does it get restructured for? Or do you believe it stays the same? I'll let you guys start on this one. So whichever one of you guys wants to start on this one, and I will go last to close it out. And then again, we will do like anything you want to touch base on from the week that we didn't to close it up on this hour-long edition of our first podcast.
You can go ahead, Charlie, if you want.
Sure. So one team that I've actually heard rumors about this, still talking to them, is the Twins. The Twins were after Correa, but had Dansby Swanson as a backup, and then didn't get Dansby Swanson either. So now they're kind of left with a little bit of a hole in short. They have Royce Lewis as one of their top prospects to play shortstop, but I know he had a pretty bad injury last year. I think it was an ACL tear or something like that. So I don't think they're 100% sure whether or not he's good to go. So I know that they've kind of been potentially in talks with him. Other than that, I mean, I think for just going 2 other teams, it's probably Dodgers, Yankees, really the only teams that are able to throw around that kind of money. I think it would be hilarious if he landed on either one of those teams, just because of how much those fan bases hate him. I know there was like some report that came out that originally the Dodgers wanted him, but then didn't go after him because they thought the fans wouldn't like it. So I don't know. We'll see. I still think he ends up on the Mets under some sort of contract, whether that has some like injury clauses like deGrom's contract or something like that. So we'll have to see what happens with that.
Justin?
So yeah, I'll just talk about my 3 teams first. I threw a random one in there. Rick will like this one because they've spent no money. White Sox. Um, I know they've got Tim Anderson over there, but they just haven't spent any money this offseason. So hopefully they do something here soon. The next one, since they've spent so much money this offseason, I think Philly is one of those mystery teams as well. Correa's come out and said he would play third base. Philly has a weak spot at third. Yeah, Alec Boehm is the next up and comer, but Alec Boehm also said, I hate it here on the field. So we'll see. And it looks like Philly's forgiven him. I don't know if the front office has. So that's an option for Philly as well. Just another bat and add to their offense, and it boosts their defense tremendously. And then the last one I have is the Yankees, of course. Same report with the Dodgers thing. Yankees didn't really want him because they're worried about the fan base part of it. But they need somebody bad. They've done nothing to improve themselves. All they did, yeah, cool, you signed Judge again, but for what? That last year, in my opinion, was a fluke. You're not going to have that same year from your team. I don't think the Yankees are a playoff team. I don't think they'll get to the playoffs next year because they didn't make a big move. Yeah, you signed Judge, but we all kind of knew Judge was going to come back at some point anyway.
Yeah, they picked up Rodon from.
Oh, did they? I mean, even then,
they've got a solid rotation.
But I just don't see it. I think their bats go quiet. They didn't boost their offense, and I think that's where they lose. They don't score enough runs for it's another deGrom situation like with the Mets. I'm sorry I keep going back to deGrom, but like that's what I have to compare it to. deGrom could have easily had 300 wins if the Mets could hit for him. So I mean, there were so many games that he lost 1-0, 2-0, 3-0 because Mets weren't hitting. But yeah, so I definitely think he ends up with the Mets. It's going to be, I know he said he's not interested in restructuring, but if he wants to be a Met, he's going to restructure that contract 100%. There have been some pictures of that injury, of that surgically repaired leg of his. I don't know how much of it's true. I don't know if that's his real thing, but if it is real, it looks like his knee is being held together just by rods, basically. And yeah, right now it's maybe not an issue, but doctors are saying it's a 3-year until it starts becoming an issue. So I think it gets restructured, maybe 5 years. I'm not sure about money, to be honest. Maybe I don't think he comes close to the deal that he thinks he's going to get, especially with that leg. And if Mets pass on him, I think a lot of teams aren't going to pay him. So he's going to have to restructure a contract. So
the White Sox aren't going to sign him. Their highest,
I know.
their highest is Benintendi. That's the highest that they've ever given out a contract, and I believe it's 5 years, $75 million. White Sox are one of your teams that they're always going to bargain shop. They're always going to get that guy that they hope has a reclamation project, or they try to do it through the draft. They will make a signing like a Grandal, but they're not going to get the highest guy. They'll always act like they are, or put it out there to appease their fan base. Hey, we're going after this guy, but realistically, they never sign him. And like you said, with Anderson, it'd be tough. I mean, you could put him in third. You have Moncada, but I think they're going to stick with Moncada, hoping he has a bounce back year like he did a couple of years ago. My surprise team that no one's really talking about would maybe be, and maybe you get Ohtani to stay, is the Angels. I think if you're going to try to retain Ohtani, which I don't know that they're going to do, and I believe if they don't come anything close to the playoffs, which I don't believe they will, he will walk. Maybe they try to go after Correa. You know what I mean? To try to generate, like to Justin's point, some guys there that can bring in some more talent. I mean, I don't know why players wouldn't want to go to the Angels, or what the disconnection is, why players aren't going there. You have 2 generational talents on that team. If you're Charlie Cruz or Justin Crumpler, wouldn't you, upcoming star, wouldn't you want to be like, I want to play with both Ohtani and Trout on the same team?
Look at me in my face. Look at me in my face. I will never play for Mike Trout. I will have to pick up his slack the entire year because he's injured. Now,
Ohtani, he's still
Ohtani.
I agree with you. I totally
Ohtani. Okay, Ohtani. I see it. Yeah, I'm going to say right now, whoever gets Ohtani, names are coming.
Yeah,
100%. You know what I mean? But to that point as well, Ohtani. This is going to be a topic for another podcast, I'm sure. Yeah. How long does he do the 2-way player thing? Like, are you that do you have that much faith to go play with him if he chooses one or the other? You know, because he's not in top
Which
10.
does he choose?
Yeah.
Which one does he choose? And he's not in top 10 in any of it. So it's like, what do you do there? You know, so
it's going to be tough. I seriously believe, to Charlie's point, that if he does not sign with the Mets, it'll be the Yankees or the Dodgers. I bet you it'd be the Yankees, because the Yankees are still trying to fill that hole. They do have some really good people in their farm system for shortstop, but I don't believe that they're ready. So they would probably make a push, and they would have the financial capabilities to be able to sign a Correa. Korea's camp, I believe, said that they're not budging. They want the same amount. They're not going to go any lower. There was concerns with that slide while he was in. If everyone's seen it, if you haven't, check it out. It's a slide that occurred in a game where Correa slid when he was with the Twins, and they thought it re-aggravated the injury. Correa said he was fine, but apparently, obviously, the physicals did show some concerns there. So both those teams were worried. I think you're going to see a lot of incentive based in that contract for health. And to Justin's point, I think you'll see this with a lot of guys coming up. And I'll touch base on it coming up in our next part of the conversation once I get your guys' last thoughts. But a lot of these 13-year contracts, we'll get to that in a second. Any last thoughts from you guys on this topic before we move on?
Oh, good.
Good, Charlie? Are the Vikings?
No, good.
Are the Vikings winning? Yeah, that's what we need to know. Is my man Kurt putting up some
No, they're
points?
down 7-3 right now.
Come on, Kurt. Come on, Kurt.
That's why we're not getting his undivided attention.
Yeah.
So on a side note, we can just talk about anything we want for the next 10 minutes. I mean, the big thing that I was going to bring up just to tail off of our last conversation is my opinion of these 13-year contracts. It's ridiculous. I get that the whole market is dictated by what everyone else is going to give and what you're willing to pay and the need and what the market value is for these guys. But these Trey Turners and these Correas, I mean, you're talking about guys who are going to be 40 years old at the end of these contracts. And you show me one guy statistically that's gotten faster, as he's gotten older. General wear and tear, injuries, there's just too much to worry about. I get these are investments, but then you're going to get it's like the same thing with pitching. You're getting these guys that are being babied through the farm systems and coming up. Now they can't go longer than 5 or 6 innings because their bodies aren't trained to go that long into games. When you're paying this amount of money, they're going to be coddled. And I just feel like you're not going to get enough out of them. And like I said, just at the end of these contracts, they're going to regret signing these guys for that amount of time.
Turner one, that's a hard one because he may not get faster, but he may get a dip in his average. I just think he's too good of a hitter, like an average hitter, to say he will be a bust. You know what I mean? Like, even if they want to use him as, I don't know why you would ever, because he does have power. Usually I would use a DH for power, but later down the road, Harper's probably going to retire before Turner does. That opens up a DH spot, so maybe, I don't know. I just don't think that one would be a bust. Now, I think Correa at 12 years would absolutely be a bust, because then you're paying an extraordinary amount of money for 10 years for a DH. But Turner, I think he's got at least a little over half of that contract he can play on the field, and now, yes, 12 years is way too long. 100%. To Rick's point, I think a good one for him would have been about 6 to 7 years, X amount of dollars. Correa, I just don't, I've never considered Correa in the top 10, like top 10 anything. He was great with, probably arguably one of the best postseason hitters of all time, 100%. But it's like, I've never really even thought of Correa like being that good. Like, when the Mets were saying they were going for him, I was like, why? Just why? We just signed like all these other people. Who really cares? But it's more about his bat than anything. So,
well, Correa has always been his defense.
Is it? Yeah, because I haven't
watched
watched too much of him. So,
Gold Glover for the last, I think, like 3 out of the last 6 years or something like that. So he's like, that's what's
good.
Really kept him in the conversation. But again, like, how long, especially at a shortstop, third baseman, how long does that glove stay that good? it's not going to, by the time he's 38, is he,
Right.
is he playing in the field every day?
Does he end up look like
like you're saying, you're buying statistically pretty average, maybe a little bit above average hitter, which is probably going to decline. And then, the glove's also going to decline. And, at that point, what do you have for all that money?
exactly? I just think he ends up looking like Josh Donaldson at 5 years.
So the big thing with Turner is a lot does revolve around his leg. As a leadoff hitter, you do need your leg. So he has statistically been pretty good in stolen bases. I mean, he's led the league in stolen bases twice, and he averages double digits in stolen bases in a game that's not really utilizing stolen bases. He's been in double digits every season besides 2015, which doesn't count because he played 27 games. So, I mean, and another thing, big draw to him is runs. He's at the top of the order. He needs to get on base. I just think if you're going to pay that guy that amount of money, I want to see really high on base percentage. I don't care about the average. I just want you getting on base. I want to see high walks. And I want to see a guy who's going to go station to station, which this one's crazy because if you think about it, analytics right now is the biggest thing. And analytics hates base stealing. So he is like the polar opposite of what analytics wants. He's a guy who's going to steal you bases. And that's why I'm saying like your big draw to getting him in his speed and moving base to base, first to third, stolen bases. What's that going to look like when he's 38? Because again, his legs they're not going to be as fast as they are now. So I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see. I mean, who knows with the training regimens and the medical stuff that keeps continually getting better. Maybe I'll be proved wrong. It's a possibility.
Yeah. I just think Philly signing Turner, in my opinion, is probably the biggest signing of the offseason, in my opinion. For what it does for their team overall is incredible. Like just signing him is a huge thing for them.
That's saying something coming from a Mets fan.
Yeah. But let's be honest. I love me some Bryce Harper.
Any last words? We'll start with you, Charlie, before we head out, and then we'll go to you once he's done. Justin, just any last topic you want to bring up real quick or anything you want to say?
I mean, I don't really have anything super specific. I know we've got some topics we said we'll bring up on some other podcasts. So nothing really. Okay.
We will quicken this up after what Justin brings up what he wants to, and then you can get back to your Vikings. And
yeah, Kurt just threw a pick six. So
of course he did. Come on, Kurt. Hey, all that matters is this game doesn't matter. You know what I mean? Like they already in.
Sure, but it's the Packers. I always like to beat the Packers.
That's true. That's true. No, I don't really have too much. I still think Mets are going to Mets it all up, and Philly will. I think Philly takes World Series this year. I'm calling it now.
I still think my pick is the Astros.
It's a good pick. I mean,
and then you sign Abreu.
I'll tell you right now that championship last year proved the Astros have been the better team in all of baseball since they won their last one.
Which on a side, and a guy alive said the reason it wasn't the fact that the Astros cheated. This is his words. He said the fact of the matter is they were the underdog team of that World Series and everyone was rooting for him. And they said that's why he was so hurt. He said in the end he rooted because he's like, here's this team that hasn't won. You know, I want them to do well. You know, I want them to win. Everyone was rooting for them. And then they felt betrayed when they found out. And I just want to, again, I know we keep saying a lot of stuff for future podcasts, but I want everyone to know that there is a lot of teams that cheat that you never hear about going on forever. And I'm not saying it's right. I'm not saying that the steroids people are right for doing it. But I'm just saying to try to find clean anywhere is very difficult to do anymore. Yep. There's a fine line.
Yeah, I will say, however, I do think that like after the scandal broke, it feels like since then, like the Astros have just kind of turned it into another gear. Like, you know, no other, besides maybe the Dodgers, you could argue, no other team has really been like, you know, this successful in this period for that long. But even, I mean, the Dodgers, like I said, they've got their 160 season World Series, but besides that, they've got nothing. But you look at some of these other teams that got to the World Series and won, and where are they now? Go back. You got Kansas City Royals. Where are the Royals now? Chicago Cubs. Where are the Cubs now? Boston Red Sox. What are the Red Sox doing? They didn't even make the playoffs this year. And then you've got like the Nationals and Tampa Bay, like these teams that they made it to the World Series or won the World Series and then just kind of fell off the map after that, versus the Astros, just year after year after year. They're always in it or right outside of it.
Good stuff.
Yeah.
So we appreciate everyone that's going to watch the podcast. Please subscribe. Help us keep growing. If there's anything you'd like to see, any suggestions, we're all for it. We'll add in anything we can, or if there's a future topic you want one of us to bring up, Charlie, Justin, in the future, Phil, when he's able to join the podcast, we'll go over any topic we possibly can within the time restriction. But it was nice for you joining us, and everybody have a great day.
Thanks, guys.